Welcome to the EdTech Unpacked podcast, where we inspire and equip educators to create learning experiences that teach and transform the lives of their students. I'm Desmond Suarez.
And I'm Aaron Long, and we are so glad that you're joining us on this episode, where we'll be exploring how to create screen recordings, but more importantly, how you can use those screen recordings to enrich your classroom experience and ultimately benefit the students. Also on this episode, we're going to have a guest, Rozaleth Tenga, joining us from Loma Linda Academy. And she is an expert user and has a lot of experience with screen recording. So we're looking forward to hearing from her and seeing how she uses them to enrich her classroom experience. Desmond, as we kick this off today, tell us a little bit about why this is an important topic and why teachers might want to explore it if they haven't.
Yeah, for sure. So, there's no substitute to having a teacher right with the student, but there's a lot of times where the teacher can't be there, and it's helpful for the student to still have the teacher virtually there to help them. So I think of times like test reviews or labs where the teacher can record themselves, or if the teacher has their students at different times, different paces, they can record their screen and share that with their students. It really unlocks a lot of opportunities to teach when you're not actually teaching at that time, to time shift your instruction.
Yeah, so the asynchronous model, and that exactly, I think, is what RJ is really going to kind of wow us with, is how she uses screen recordings to kind of create an asynchronous learning experience.
She's got a cool setup.
And so we're looking forward to that. A lot of good reasons. So, hey, as we unpack this a little bit, talk us through what teachers can do to get started here and so they can follow along on this episode.
Yeah, so let's unpack the tech.
Let's do it.
So to unpack the tech, I want to briefly talk about some of the alternative or some of the screen recordings out there, the tools you can use. So if you're on a Mac, the built-in QuickTime can do screen recordings pretty easily. Screencastify, I know, is very popular with a lot of educators, and I haven't used it a lot, but I understand it works really well. I'm going to say, unfortunately, sorry if you're in this case, but a lot of people end up using Zoom to do screen recordings. I want to tell you that there are easier and better ways to do screen recordings. I know that you might be familiar with it, but there's better ways too. We're going to tell you a little bit about that.
And Desmond, why do you not like Zoom? I'm curious.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I should have explained that. So for one, I think it's a little cumbersome to do your recording. Also, the quality is not as high as it is with some of the other systems. So I guess the big thing is quality is lower and it's more cumbersome. So we want to make your life easier.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
What else? What other tools can teachers maybe consider?
So OBS is kind of like the high end for all kind of recordings. And there's a ton more, but Loom is the one I want to talk a little bit about today. It's the one that I use the most because the recordings are good and it's really quick and easy to use. So the tip with Loom is, if you're an educator, make sure you go to loom.com/education, where you can get the education account. Use your school email address and you'll get a much better account than you would if you just signed up for a general account. It's free for unlimited videos, 45 minutes each. Don't do longer than that. Your students will hate you. And HD quality and many other features. The thing I also love about Loom is that it's cross-platform. You can use it with iOS and Android and I think Windows and Mac OS. The way I use it the most is just the Chrome extension. It's super easy and it's super quick. So that's the way I recommend using it.
Cool.
But you have another one that you like to use. You want to tell us about it?
Yeah, and this is a little bit of a fringe screen recording tool, but I use Notability. I have a lot of experience using it. Desmond and I have talked through this. It's not really a true screen recording tool unless you're recording your whole screen, which I don't. But it has
can it do that?
Well, you can record using like your iOS screen record setting, but not Notability. Yeah. Okay. So if you decided you wanted to record your whole screen, it's obviously easy enough to do in iOS. But it is not device agnostic. It is specific to the Apple ecosystem. There's a Mac app. I use primarily the iOS app. And so I'm not going to talk a whole lot about it, but if you want to kind of get a similar experience, similar price point, I would recommend GoodNote. which is also a direct competitor to Notability. And in some ways, they have some cool features that I like better. There are some differences. In fact, we're going to share a link to an awesome comparison that takes you through the differences between both in the description here. But I'm going to explore Notability. Notability is fantastic for creating notes, particularly if you have the ability to mirror your screen in your classroom setting. Highly recommended, whether that's direct to a TV that has baked in Apple AirPlay or through an Apple TV. That's one of the greatest features about the iPad, is being able to share your screen on the fly. And so paired with Notability and then also utilizing the record features, you really get a live instruction tool along with the ability to record that instruction and deliver it in a way that's easy to share so the kids can watch it back later when they want to kind of see what you did in class. I've used that with teaching math class, and so I'm excited to share a little bit about how you can do the same.
Very cool. Well, let's get to our demonstrations. Let's talk about how to put it into practice.
Awesome. Let's do it.
So let's put this into practice. I want to show you how I most commonly use screen recordings. It's not something that I use every day. I know a lot of teachers do, but one of the ways that I do that is probably my favorite and most powerful way is test reviews. I don't do it every time, but most of the time when I give a test review, you talked about how you use it for Notability recordings for your live instruction, and then also for your to like share with the students. And you can. I love that. That's how I usually use it. Because teachers, we get busy. Like we're not trying to put more work on you. We get busy, and so having it's a pain time wise to like make all your preparations and sit down and find the time and set everything up right to do a recording when you're not teaching. But I love it. And there are times to do that. RJ is going to share us about how she does that. But most of the time, I think it's best just to, record parts of what you're doing in class. Generally, and I'm going to contradict myself a little here, you want to keep most of your recordings shorter, do more short recordings. For my test review, that usually is longer, but as I keep reminding the students, this is a reference. So you can go back and you're like, oh, what did he say for this? And they can scrub to the right time. They can re-listen to it on fast speed. I'm not giving here's how to do it. I'm more telling them, test review. And so it also gives me a little more latitude to go faster in the class. If I'm like, hey, all right, just be quiet for a minute, because we're running out of time. We're not going to have time to finish all this recording of you or all this review if you're going to ask a lot of questions. So I'm just going to go through it and you can ask me questions later. And that way I can make sure to get it all. Also, this, a few weeks ago, Aaron and I were actually on a trip together with a group that we're a part of. And so on TDEC, but I missed 2 test review days that I really needed to do with my students. And so I recorded them and then I shared them with them. So even though I couldn't be present to do the reviews, they still got the reviews. So if you look at my screen right now, I'm going to show you just briefly how I do this. I have the Loom extension put in there. And so I just click on the extension.
And again, you're using the Chrome extension, right?
Yes, the Chrome extension. Thank you. So I generally keep my camera off. You can do that if you want, but my students usually get tired of seeing my face anyways. So I think it depends on what kind of recording you're doing. Check your mic settings. I'm going to do full screen. And I like doing full screen. That way I can switch to the textbook or something else. And then I'll just click start recording. And I'm not using the education version, so you probably saw the 5-minute limit there. Share my screen. Gives me a little countdown. And then I just kind of go through my review. We go, I give them a copy of this Google Doc so they can be filling it in. I don't put any answers on here. These are just the bullet points. And we talk through the whole review. And I just do it as we go through in class. And then when we're done, I click stop. And this is kind of the beauty of it, because we talked about ease and how Zoom was a lot more cumbersome and lower quality. But boom, there it is. In real time, I can, I say real time, man, it's slowing down a little. I can grab
Hey,
this link. There it is.
As you're working on that, how polished do you try to be when you're doing this, Desmond? You know, is this like oh, this didn't go great, let me redo the whole thing? Or,
Yeah,
you know,
so
what level of quality are you looking for?
yeah, good point. So for this kind of thing, same kind of quality you would give in a live class. All right. It's always important to remember when you're being recorded. But like, I don't give a lot of quality concerns about this because they're going to maybe use it. They're going to scrub through it. If they're absent that day, they use it. And you know, after the test, this is worthless. There are times where like, we've all had this where a student says, no, you told us that this was the answer. And I'm like, I might have. If I did, go back and check the recording and let me know. Because if I made a mistake, I want to rectify that. But that's like the only time it's really used after.
I appreciate that. And I think what Desmond's saying there is probably exactly what any teacher would say who uses screen recordings a lot. It's not about being perfect and being polished. It's about just creating the content and making it shareable and having a quick and easy process for doing that. So I interrupted you there, but I just kind of wanted to hear your insights on, you know, what you're looking for quality-wise. But you can go ahead and finish taking us through that.
I'm almost done, and then I want to talk about those concepts. So we just click the copy link. Boom, link is copied. I can email that. I can put it in your learning management system. You do whatever you want with that. It is ready to play. They can listen to it faster, slower. If they're logged in, it lets you know who watched it. You can download it if you want.
That's the beauty, and this is what I love about Loom, and honestly, what I'm going to share as well, but it creates a web-based recording.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember back when, but even like one of the apps I'll reference later, it was all device-based. So you would record to your device, same with QuickTime and some of those other tools, OBS. You know, you're recording to your device typically, and then you're having to upload it to a place to then make it shareable. And that becomes so cumbersome that gets in the way of doing this on the fly and making it quick and easy for teachers. So I love that about Loom, and I just didn't want that to get lost. So
yeah, it's really great because like I still have the ability in the education version. I'm not showing that now because I am using a different account. But you know, I can download it, so I can archive it, I can save it. But for like this, again, I don't care about it a few days later, so I can share it real quick and then we're done. But you had a story about how you put a lot of recordings invested into a platform and then had some problems. So this is a word of wisdom for those who are doing screen recording.
Yeah, and that's super relevant. You know, I've used an app I did for a number of years called EduCreations, iOS app, and super great whiteboard kind of screen recording tool. And I would do it on the fly. I would do it in class, which to me is so key. Back to what Desmond highlighted there. It's just if you can integrate your screen recordings into your instruction, it's not an extra step you have to do later. And so for me, I've tried to figure out over the years, how can I create these demo videos, these instructional videos the students can reference later while I'm introducing the topic. So finding something that works. EduCreations was fantastic for that. However, and it was a big one, we just logged in right before we recorded here today, and I had 296 videos that I had created over the years, almost 300, and some of them were 8-10 minutes long. You know, the longer ones, shorter ones, 2-3 minutes, that aren't technically lost. I could go back and download all those, but right now they're kind of lost to me because they're trapped in a certain ecosystem. So it was kind of heartbreaking, but I told Desmond I made a conscious decision. You know what? I'm going to abandon those because of the amount of work it would take to download and or edit them. You can edit them on their platform, but I didn't want to keep paying for this platform that I wasn't going to continue using.
There you go. I mean, it's worth paying for something that's valuable, but that is something I always think about when I start using a tool is when I'm done, either there's a better product or that one stops working right or whatever. Can I get my content out of it? Can I get what I've invested out of it? Because I've heard too many stories like that. I want to briefly talk about another use to kind of tell you, we've been talking about like the throwaway, you know, you use it a few days later, it's not valuable. Another way I've used screen recordings is to teach the computer applications class that I teach. And so I'm teaching the students how to use all the Google tools. And so for those, I did create a little more intentional videos. So I think it's worth considering when you are recording your video. Is it something that you want to be able to maybe use next time, you know, next time you teach that class? then maybe don't reference the thing that happened in class the other day. If it's something that is, you're not going to keep reusing, then make it very personal and connected to the current students. Because what I did is I made basically tutorials of different assignments, explained the assignments, and then I embedded them on my learning management system on the assignment. Now, the reality is that since Google seems to change their Google Docs and Sheets and all those things on like a weekly basis, it feels like sometimes those recordings are I need to re-record them anyways. But I take a very different approach when I'm recording those versus something like my test review.
I like it. Would this be a good time to jump in and share a little bit about Notability, or do you have anything else you want to wrap up with Loom?
I'm excited to hear Notability because, like I've said earlier, I've used Notability a lot, but I've known the screen recording stuff is there, but I've never used it for that. So tell us about it.
Yeah, let's take a look here. What I'm going to do is share my iPad screen. So you're going to watch as we kind of go through an existing note that I've used before. Actually, it was a live, experience with the students. You're going to kind of see how I used it and how simple it is to create a recording, but then also how easy it is for students to access those. So let's take a look here. All right, so as we look at this document here, this is an 8th grade math Notability note that I've created. I'm going to kind of scroll it for you as we just talk for a second here. You can see all the concepts for the first few chapters that we had there. This was back a year or so ago. But what I like to do is create these running documents. I don't create a new document, new note for every lesson. I'll keep it running at least through the quarter. I've also run them all the way through the end of the semester at times. I've found that it's easier to have a longer running document, and the reason is that when you share these documents with the kids, you're using a URL, and you don't want to have to constantly be getting a new link, a new URL to share with them. I'd rather just share the same link every day through a certain point through the quarter semester, and the kids know every day it's linked in the LMS. We use Google Classroom, but regardless, so same link. At the end of class, it's easy enough to just update your note. And so I have my share options here on the screen. So I'm going to kind of start with that. I'll go share options, and I can say update shared link right there. So I just click that at the end of class, and any notes I created today will then sync to the cloud, and the note is updated. So it just takes a second at the end of class to click that button, and everything's uploaded. Now, how do you create these embedded recordings? First of all, I'm going to show you what they look like, and then we'll look at how to create them. So at the top of the screen here, you'll see this little play button on the bar at the top. Depending on which version of Notability you have, you're going to see a different look. This Notability is recently updated, and by the time you watch this, maybe it's updated again, but nonetheless, it's always lived in the top bar there. So if I click play, it's going to go default to whatever current video I was last on. I can click the 3 little dots to the right, and you'll see a breakout, and now I'm looking at 5 different video links. And what's really cool about this is I can click on one here, or since I'm in the play menu, I can scroll to any of the embedded videos that have been created and actually click on those. So we're going to try this a couple different ways here. Let's go back to the beginning and hit play. And you're going to see I'm not seeing anything on my screen. Now, why is that? Here's what's really unique about the Notability recording feature. It plays back the recording in the location in the note in which it was made. And so you have to locate it in the notes. So you'll notice on my descriptions, I put 1.2, solving 2-step equations as my first note. So what does that mean? The kids know this. They're trained to do this. They go to lesson 1.2, and that's telling them where the recording is going to be located. All right, so we're going to jump to the recording I had created for Chapter 1, Lesson 4, 1.4, Solving Multi-Step Equations. And so on the screen here, you can see I've navigated to that section, and I'm going to click on the play button. And here's what the students will see. I'm going to pause that for just a moment. You'll see that when I hit play, everything in that recording kind of lightens. It almost grays out, where you can still see a ghosted image. But what it does, it puts the pen strokes in sync with the audio. So in class, as I'm creating these, a student might say, hey, Mr. Long, can you do another example and record that for us? Great, let's do another example. Hit record, just an audio intro. Hey, we're here in lesson 1.4. This is what we're doing. And then I write and create another example. And so it's putting my audio in sync with the pen strokes. So when the students watch it back, let's just take a look at this again. We're going to kind of scrub the video at the top, as Desmond mentioned earlier. I can grab the playhead and just scrub it, and it'll put me forward in time to another point in that video. I'm going to pause that for a moment. What I really like about this too is that students can visually click on a part of the notes, and it'll jump to that point in the actual note that you've created. So I'm going to hit play. And
so then the students are using Notability to watch the recording. Is that right?
That's right. And so that's a really key element here. I would note that Notability's recently made their product free, the Pro version, for educational institutions.
Oh, that's good.
Now, you do have to be using an MDM to push apps. You kind of have to be in a setting where you have some management over the devices.
So where the students have managed applications or managed iPads, then they can probably access it.
Right.
But you can't access it through a browser or download it. Is that right?
So you can.
It gets better.
That's actually how it works. So I'm not syncing directly with the students. I'm sharing a link, and the functional route is the students access that link through the LMS. And they just click on download note. So anytime they want to jump in, they can see the browser-based version without downloading it. Okay. But if they want to get the recordings, then they download the note to their device, and then they get the play features that I'm sharing with you here. So
cool.
It is an extra step, honestly, but it's something that I have not found any barrier for the students, at least to the junior high age on up. I mean, they're not going to have any trouble doing something like that.
If they're using iPads.
That's right. So again, it's iOS, Apple ecosystem specific. So I want to demonstrate this. I'm going to jump down to, how about this part, the part that says footnote at the bottom. And I just clicked on the word, and it jumps straight to that point in the recording. So I'm going to pause that again. If a student knows, oh, this is the one I need to see, I need to get to that quickly, they're not actually scrubbing the playhead, which is common in videos. They're visually clicking on the section of the notes that they want to see played back. And so it's extremely efficient. Notice you don't see me, I'm not on screen because it's not doing a video recording. It's simply putting your voice in sync with the notes and then allowing students to be able to click on that section of the notes, and it jumps right to what they want to see played back. So it's extremely easy to make these on the fly. That's the thing I love about it as well. You can create a recording just by clicking on the record button at the top. Because I'm doing a screen share right now, it doesn't allow me to. It's allowing me to hit play there, but not record. So I'm going to take that back. This is an update. I just clicked on another menu to cursor over, and I see my audio mic there, which is now I'm recording. So I'm recording another note as we speak, and you can see it's turned red there at the top. If I click stop, then I have a new recording I can go in and name. It says recording 6. And I can either play it back or click edit. And what's great about these is in Notability, you can actually trim these. I select it, I go edit clip, I can rename this. I can say, let's call this 1.4 part 2 and hit done there. I could have even trimmed it. So say I did a little too much talking at the end, I can go back and grab the playhead and trim it up. So they actually allow you to do some on-the-fly editing, rename it. So when a student wants to jump around to different parts of those recordings, they visually can see where to go. And it's just a very simple process. Again, sharing is as simple as going to share options, and I'm going to say share link if I've never done that before. I'll get an initial link to share out. If I have shared this link and I just want to update the note, so I added another note just now, I just click on this update shared link button, and then the students have access to that recording.
That's cool. Well, I love seeing the way we can do it through recording your computer screen, or as you pointed out, this is also a tool to give students these recordings that you've done in class. And I think that we'll have a future episode where we dive deeper into whiteboarding apps, and that's definitely the kind of app that I would consider a whiteboarding app.
Yeah, Desmond pointed this out to me. He said, isn't that really kind of more whiteboarding? I said, yeah, but it's such an easy entry point for actually recording what you're doing on your screen. So it's kind of a mashup tool, in my opinion.
And that's okay to live in both worlds.
There you go. And not all these things are not like in a box. There's a lot of crossover tools that don't necessarily just fit one bill. So
cool. All right. Well, I think it's now time for our featured educator. So we're going to be joined by RJ. And so let's hear what she has to say.
All right.
All right. Now for our featured educator, I am excited to invite RJ Tenga to our podcast. She is the STEM teacher along with the Innovation and Design Thinking lead at Loma Linda Academy. And we are excited to have you here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you. So I am on my 11th year teaching in the SDA system. I've taught 9 years teaching high school science, and I am on my second year teaching junior high STEM courses. I am a missionary kid, and so I've been to different countries, which is a blessing. And I have passion when it comes to teaching, even though in reality I wasn't really trained as a teacher, but yes.
Very cool. Well, you want to tell us how screen recording has impacted your instruction?
Yes. So for me, screen recording is a big part of the way I teach. I see screen recording as a cloner. I am able to clone myself. Yes, because if I record my videos, students who are quick and fast, they can just keep going, watching the lessons. And students who need my help, I can give them that time to be able to help them in the classroom. And if students forget what the concept is, they don't have to wonder what it is. They just go on our LMS and they can rewatch the lesson. And so the frustration on my student side decreases because they know they have access to my lessons anytime. So yes, it's been liberating.
You're telling us about how you run your class a little, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I remember is that you have all the students in the class, they're all working independently, and you're floating and able to go and give more time to each of them. So I love that because we've heard a trend in education sometimes of using tools like this to like pile on more students per teacher. You don't need as many teachers, but you're using a tool in the way that I think is best, where it just enables you to give more dedicated time to each student, and the power of the teacher is enhanced instead of reducing that teacher contact time.
Yes, so my class, it's blended learning. So that means I do teach in the classroom, and at the same time, the students can access the lessons online. And that helps me do small groups. I can still teach a whole group class. I can do one-on-one without impeding the progress of the students who are, they're quick, so they're not bored. And also my class is self-paced. That means within a unit, they are all in different, lessons, because not everybody learns at the same pace. So by using screen recording, I'm able to, clone myself, be able to cater to every student's needs without worrying that I'm not focusing on anybody.
When you first shared that with us, I was actually kind of blown away. I was like, really? They're all at different points in their learning. Truly, it's like a fully asynchronous kind of environment.
It's like synchronous, asynchronous, I guess.
Really a different concept than, I've really ever had exposure to. So would you like to share like a specific lesson example that you've used this for, so we can kind of start to get our heads around it?
All right. So last year when I started teaching junior high, I actually started this process about 2 years and a half ago. So I started second semester for my high schoolers, but last year was the first time I implemented through and through. So if let me go and share my EdPuzzle. So EdPuzzle is what I use to share all of the information for my students. So let me just go here. So as you can see, here is my EdPuzzle where I put in all of my lessons. And I have a lot of videos now because this is a whole expanse of a whole year of lessons. So keep in mind, now that I have them, I can actually just reuse them for the next year. So here's a good example of a lesson that I created. So as you can see here, This is me teaching. My face is still up here. I am personalizing that video to make it not just be a generic lesson, but a lesson from me. The students know that it's a lesson from me. And so as I play, you're going to hear, you're going to read everything. You have the objective in there, and then it kind of like leads you to the lesson.
Well, you're on lesson 3.4. That is a good thing. All right, we're going to be learning about Newton's second law of motion in this lesson. By the end of the lesson, you should be able to state Newton's second law of motion and explain mass, acceleration, and force and how they are related with each other. Okay?
So just a side note. Yes, I am wearing a Darth Vader mask because it's Newton's second law of motion. So may the force be with you. I mean, if you're a science teacher, you should get it. There we go. Yeah, so this is how the lesson looks like. As you can see, there were subtitles in there. I have my face right here, and my cursor is actually highlighted, so I can like keep students in track when they're reading. And so if I keep going, as you can see here, there's my notes. The students have guided notes as they're watching it. So they're not just watching, but they're actually taking notes as well. And I have animations in there. Here is a good example. I'm teaching students how to calculate for force using the formula. I can actually annotate on it while I'm recording my video. That way students are writing what I'm writing on the screen.
And again, you're using what to record?
I am using ScreenPal for this one. All right. And then if I push forward, as you can see, you have I have animations in there demonstrating how mass and force are related with each other. And then we get to a question that looks like this. So when we teach up front, normally we ask the students, did everybody understand that? Of course, everybody's going to say, yes, we understood everything you said. But deep down inside, they don't.
Yes, no one wants to be the student that has the teacher repeat it, unfortunately.
Yes, because that would be embarrassing, especially for my junior high kids. Everything is embarrassing to them. So they would say, yes, we understand it, but in reality, they don't. If you have a screen recording and you have something that would ask them a question to check if they understand it or not, they don't have to publicly say it. That reduces the embarrassment on their end. And if they do not understand it, they can just raise their hand, not telling everybody why their hand is raised. I can come up to them and I can clarify things if they don't understand something. So this is an example of how I would use my screen recording for my lesson presentations.
That's great. I love the baked-in formative assessment. And honestly, I've heard there's a new feature here with EdPuzzle. Maybe you can confirm this, but that there's some AI elements to EdPuzzle where it can actually create questions for you. I haven't tried this. Is that something you've seen or tried?
That is something I have seen. So right now I have my videos already with questions. I already included the question, but they do have the AI that can generate the questions for you. And which is great. And then what's nice about EdPuzzle, if I'm going to talk about that, well, we're talking about it, might as well, is it's very good even for math because they have a tool that they can actually write down equations.
That's helpful. Yeah.
Yes. So that's helpful and really nice. So yes.
That's cool. And yeah, the formative assessment really does help them like keep pace and they're not just skipping through it. And I think you shared with us before that like they can't skip forward. They have to actually watch the content. It controls that. That's powerful.
And some students actually would prefer to rewatch the whole thing again just to get all the questions right. And I'm like, I like the effort. That's a good thing. So go ahead and do it. So yes.
That's cool. And so yeah, that actually takes us to our next question about like how has this impacted the students' learning in the class?
So I have 99 students in my science class, all separated in 4 sections, and I just did an end of the quarter reflection because we ended last Friday, and really pretty much everyone says they like this way because they don't feel too rushed. They know that I'm present. They know I'm there to help them. And if they're absent, they're not worried that the teacher will just say, oh, copy somebody else's notes. Because that doesn't really teach a student if you're just copying their notes, like somebody else's notes. If you have a video, you're still teaching them. And so it has allowed my students to not feel too guilty if they're sick. because they know they're not missing anything in class. And um, there's more accountability on their end now. That's something I'm really trying to teach the students, to be accountable for their work. And when you're teaching up front, I can't really do that, because my expectation being a teacher up front is everybody learns at the same pace. But the reality is it's not that case. And so using the videos, students who have IEPs or 504s, they love it because they feel like their accommodations are implemented by using the videos. So yes.
I love that. Aaron and I once had a conversation recently about how you're not adapting to the specific students who need the help. Instead, so you're not, accommodations isn't even the right word. Instead, you're making all of your instruction accessible in the same way. And I really like then the students, because I've had students who've needed a lot of extra help, and they are ashamed to ask for it. Or we've all had those students who need the help, and their parents or them are never willing to go forth and get the help they need. And so as a teacher, you can only accommodate so much. But instead of like making specific accommodations, you are making the accommodations and accessibility for everyone in the classroom. And I think there's a lot of power to that.
They enjoy that their learning is not disrupted by their other classmates, because they're on their headphones, they're watching, they're focused on it. So if somebody needs the restroom, then their learning is not impacted anymore, because they're just one-on-one with that lesson. So it's like I'm teaching them one-to-one.
It's so interesting to me. I mean, just getting my head around this idea that all the kids are paced differently. It's just such an underexposed concept, I guess, for most of us classroom teachers, especially when you're in like whole group instruction kind of model, than going to like everyone's at a different place in the curriculum. It's just, I would love to come and visit and see that live.
Yes. Oh, definitely. You're free to come over to California and check it out. I'm the only teacher at school that does this, and I was able to kind of make my co-team for Science 7 to start using videos, but not necessarily the self-pacing part yet. But it's a good way to teach students how to be accountable, really, because they know that their grades is not because of what I give them. They're the ones that give themselves the grades. So yes. Yeah.
That's awesome. So we were going to recap the technology here. Instead of asking, I just want to make sure we have this kind of straight here. So you're recording using ScreenPal, and that's an application on your computer, I would assume. You're uploading that to EdPuzzle. So then you upload your video to EdPuzzle. And through EdPuzzle is where you create those little formative check questions. And then you're taking those video links from EdPuzzle or videos, and you're embedding those in your LMS. And remind us again, what are you guys using for your LMS?
We're using Canvas.
Canvas, okay. Anything I missed there is we kind of just look at the spectrum of software that you're using to create your screencasts.
That's, well, the PowerPoint one, I guess. So before I create the video, I have to make sure that my PowerPoint is ready and I have a tablet that I can write on the screen with. So yes.
And I think you previously mentioned that sometimes you'll just use your phone to record something. It's not always a screen recording. So I think it's encouraging to share that. Don't feel like you have to be locked into a specific tool, especially when it comes to recording or in editing. But use what works. Most important.
Yes. So if you don't have, if you have a camera and the internet and a computer, then you can do a screen recording easily. Even if you do not have an annotating tablet to annotate on the screen, you can always go back to paper and pencil or whiteboard and marker. Yes, because you can still record those things. So it doesn't have to be too techy, as long as you can capture the concepts while teaching and being able to share that to the students. That's the main point of this, this technology.
So leading into our next question of like, how can a busy like small school teacher, they've got a bunch of different preps to do. How can they're probably not going to have time to record all of their lessons, but how can they start using like screen recording to enhance what they're doing, like you've shared?
So let's just look at a teacher who has multi-grade in the classroom. That teacher has to teach 2, 3, 4, or to some, even some schools have to 1 to 8 grades in one day. By doing screen recording, again, we're cloning ourselves. So let's say you have a couple of sixth graders that needs to learn how to, do fractions or something like that. Then what you can do is you can record yourself teaching that specific content and assign that to those students for that day so that the teacher can go and focus on other grades. And again, as you're recording certain things, keep in mind that you're saving these videos. So by the end of the year, you have multiple videos you can reuse the following year and then increase your library. That to some point you're gonna be able to focus more on certain, you can spread yourself out more, I guess, in that scenario because now you are teaching all of the students all at the same time because you have the screen recording. So
I
yes.
love that. A tip that really helped me early on in my career. I remember a more seasoned teacher than I was at the time told me that don't feel like you have to make every lesson great for every class. Like, don't feel like you have to do every recording in this application, but instead, like, pick a class or a period or something every week. Make 1, 2, 3 videos, whatever you're capable of, and especially if you're able to reuse them, then you build up a library, and each year you're able to have more resources that you can then implement over the time. I've definitely done that in my career.
I did that on my first year of implementing the screen recording. I did chemistry and biology at the same time. That was a lot of work, obviously. I should have focused on one subject, and I actually don't even use those anymore because I'm now in junior high.
There you go, there you go. But yeah, if you have the chance to teach classes over, just do like 1 or 2 for each class. You're not
Yes,
doing the whole
yes.
thing.
Yeah, yes. And then keep in mind, at least in my classroom, it's not the same as a flipped classroom. I don't require the students to watch it at home. I want them to watch it in the classroom. So, yes.
All right, RJ. So we've heard about some really just innovative things you do in the classroom. You've probably sparked some interest for a lot of teachers out there. So for a teacher that says, "Hey, I want to take this further. How can I learn more?" What would you point them to?
So I am actually part of a project. It's called the Modern Classrooms Project, and screen recording and self-pacing in the classroom is actually part of the components of it. So if you're interested, you can look into it. It has been very helpful with my teaching. And I do want to encourage teachers that you don't have to be very techy to do screen recording. If you don't have the funds to get a separate software that has a yearly subscription, YouTube has its own screen capture. PowerPoint has that built in already. Yes, yeah. If you don't have a tablet to write on, you can always use paper and pencil or your board, really. And yeah, it has been liberating for me as a teacher because I am able to focus on my relationships with the students because I'm not always upfront all the time. Classroom management is so much better because I can target individuals already. And if we're talking about social emotional learning now, understanding students' mental health. They come to your classroom, they have problems at home, problems with friendships. Sometimes they're just not at a learning point of the day. When you have videos, that encourages them that, they can move on their own pace. And sometimes they need to focus on their mental health too. And it's been very helpful with my relationships with the students, and I'm able to lead them to God more because I have more time with my worships. So, yes.
Well, RJ, give us that name one more time because I've already forgotten it.
I,
So the
yes, so
name
there
of
is a website. So,
okay,
yes. So it's called the Modern Classrooms Project.
the Modern Classrooms Project. Okay, awesome. Well, I'm going to go explore it. Hey, we just want to say thank you so much for joining us. I wanted to ask some questions. I'm like, okay, this will have to be a future episode. One of them is I'm just going to give you a question for a future episode. How does that relate to grading? I'm not going to allow you to answer that now, but when the students are all at different paces and there are different points in the curriculum, how do you synchronize grade reports? So anyway, that'll be a future episode we'll have to do because
Make
I
sure
know
to
you also
subscribe to
have a
get that.
passion for. That's right. Click and subscribe right now. That's the time to say that. I know you're passionate about mastery-based grading And
Yes,
so
I
as
am.
many of us delve into standards-based assessment and grading, which mastery-based is a version of that, we will definitely want to come back and kind of get your take on that. So thank you so much for being here today and joining us. It's been
Thank you,
awesome.
RJ. It's a real blessing. Thank you for joining us today on EdTech Unpacked, where we explored screen recording and how to use it to enhance your classroom experience and your students' learning. Please send your EdTech problems that you need to be solved to our help desk segment, along with any other feedback you might have through our website at edtechunpack.com, where we have a place for you to submit your own audio recordings and contact form that we will answer in the future.
We've covered a lot today, and sometimes it's easy to get overwhelmed when you dig in like we have. When you feel overwhelmed by the task at hand, remember that God has a purpose and a place for you in his plan, and we are stronger as we journey together, striving to give our best for the calling of his Spirit. May we always lend a listening ear to our students in need. May our attempts to engage students through technology never interfere with our calling to minister to the heart and soul of students in need. And remember, there's no substitute for great teaching. It's not just about the tools you use, but how you foster meaningful relationships with your students to transform their lives. We'll see you next time.